For our upcoming grads, what quality or characteristics in leaders stand out to you as a must-have or a must-cultivate in college grads?
The graduates this year are going into a world where our electoral system, how we elect the officials who govern in our stead and for us, the electoral system is broken. It's in worse condition than our roads and bridges, if that is possible. It has been totally overwhelmed by money. It has been badly damaged by gerrymandering of congressional districts. And we have reached a point where the path to elective office is so odious that people simply don't want to fool with it anymore. Our best and brightest people, our best and brightest young people, are not going into public service and are not running for public office, and that has changed the whole talent pool. Somehow, I think it's my job, and one of the things I want to talk to these young people about is don't turn away from public service. My generation has messed it up pretty badly. It's going to be up to them to straighten it out. We've got to convince people and young people that public service is an honorable thing. I'll tell you something. When I was a little boy, my grandmother thought I was going to grow up to be president of the United States. And you know why? Because that's what every grandmother thought that her grandson was going to grow up to be. How long has it been since you've heard anybody say, I hope my child goes into politics? And to me, that's the worst indictment of all and the biggest warning flag flying. We have got to change that. And it's not going to be done by my generation. It's going to be done by the young people who are going to be walking across that stage. And that's going to be their challenge. And I hope they can do it. This generation is a lot smarter than my generation was. They know a lot more right now because there's more to know than my generation did. But I think that's going to be the number one challenge facing them, getting our electoral process back in order, finding a way to end this gridlock. You know, too many politicians are coming to Washington now, and their only objective is not to get a primary opponent. They know if they can get elected the first time, get the money to get elected the first time, as an incumbent, they can raise the money to keep on getting elected. The founders of this country were not worried about political survival. Those men that signed the Declaration of Independence were worried about being hanged if it didn't work. They were worried about their own lives if it didn't work. But in their phrase, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for this cause. The challenges they faced were far greater than today's politicians face. So we need political reform, but more than that, we need political courage. People who are not afraid to say, look, I've come to do something here. If that gets me beat in the next election, so be it. I will have accomplished what I came here to do. We need political courage that the founders had, and it's going to be up to the next generation to find that.
No pressure, generation. You need to fix all of politics. So what will our grads do to make the world better, safer, and more tolerant? You talk about developing a climate favoring inquiry rather than divisiveness.
I think we need to listen more. I think one of the great lessons of this election that somehow we didn't hear some of the anger, especially out in the middle of the country. I mean, I knew people were upset about the gridlock in Washington, but if you go out into the middle of Ohio, that's just inside baseball. It's much more basic out there. If you don't have a job, if the only job available is at the Walmart and you don't get that job and you're 55 years old, you're not going to find one. You're going to have to go someplace else to find one. And a large number of people out there just felt they were being left behind and were being mistreated. I don't know if Trump stumbled into that or if he heard it early on, but those people took a flyer on Trump. They didn't particularly like either candidate, as we know from the surveys, but they wanted change. This was a change election, and the election was what it was. Saint Benedict, when he founded the Benedictine order and was writing a manual for the monks on what they should do, he said, you must listen, but he said you must listen with your heart. I think that's a good lesson for all of us. We get so hung up on data and polls and algorithms and all of this. They can tell you how a person might think, but it doesn't always tell you what is deep down in their heart. That's what we've got to do. We need to start listening to the other person's point of view and try to understand why they feel that way. Everybody who voted for Donald Trump was not a dingbat or something. Some were people that were just felt they had been left behind. By the same token, everybody who voted for Hillary Clinton was not some wild-eyed, I'm for every grievance group in the world. They were honorable, good people, and they were good people in their heart. We've got to start talking to one another. We're not doing that. Our neighborhoods, we sort of tend to live in the neighborhood where everybody thinks the same way, where everybody looks the same way. We got to start thinking about that again.
So what role has higher education played in your life?
I went to TCU, and I was there for 4 years. The last 2 years I worked full time. I didn't have much of a campus life. I got my first reporting job when I was 20 years old, and from there on, all I wanted to do was graduate so I could get out of there and go to work. I had to go into the Air Force for 3 years, but a lot of my education came later in life when I started doing these books on tape and these great lectures, and I probably did 100 of them. And I think that's really where I got most of the formal education that I had. But education, it's the answer to everything. It's the answer to everything. And to those at the university where I'll be speaking to the graduates, they're going out to their first job, but to everybody who's still in school, don't do what I did. I mean, I was so anxious to get out that I didn't pay that much attention to what was going on in school. This is one of the great learning experiences of your life because you're learning, most of all, about yourself. And take advantage of that and take advantage of the friendships and the relationships and pay attention in class. It's a simple, kind of an obvious lesson, but education made the difference in America, public education, which wasn't even in the original Constitution, but it's still how you move from one place to another, and we should be doing everything we can to make the university. Well, our universities are great. They're the envy of the world, and people in every country want to come here. But our secondary education, the K through 12, is really a disgrace. And there's no excuse in this country that we shouldn't have better schools than we have. And we need to be thinking seriously about that. I mean, we always, make a big deal about who's going to be the Secretary of State and who's going to be the Secretary of Treasury and Defense. We should be making an equally big deal about who's going to be the Secretary of Education. And this should not be something that just goes to someone as a political favor or something like that. It's the crucial thing right now. The right to vote, the right to a free press, and the right to good education. Those are the three things, as well as the right to adequate health care.
Any advice for humanity?
No, I don't give much advice. I just my advice is to just, number one, remember this: you get one trip to planet Earth. Make the most of it. That's what I've always tried to do. I try not to take myself too seriously, but I've taken my responsibilities as a journalist seriously. Get to know the folks around you. You'll soon discover that they may know things that you don't know, and always remember the people who helped you along the way, and forget about the ones who didn't. I used to think, I'd get even with them someday. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the time. As Willie Nelson would say, you delete and fast forward on those. And that's kind of been my philosophy before Willie put it in those words. But I think those are good words to remember.
And your success is the greatest revenge.
Whatever success I've had has been the most fun. And that's, when you get right down to it, pick out something you like to do, and then it's not like work. Don't worry about success. If you get good at it, the success takes care of itself. But always remember, you're going to get only one trip here. You want to make the most of it.